Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of POPPIN Brown Girl. We are on episode 2, and I cannot be more excited. Today's episode is deeply personal to me. It's not just because of the topic, but who I have sitting here with me today is very important to me. This is my cousin, my sister. We grew up together, and I had to have her on the podcast today to talk about her life changes, her trials, and the things that she's been through. And I think that her story will inspire you more than it has inspired me. So without further ado, I would like to welcome my cousin, Lavetta Adams, aka LA. Welcome. This is so surreal. It's like, how old are we? We're like 40 and 45 and 42. We're like 3 years apart. So
I've forgotten my age. I have unsubscribed to that channel. Age is a frame of mind, and I have been diagnosed with the Benjamin Button syndrome.
okay.
And I'm claiming that
Yes.
for the rest of my
As you
journey.
should.
Yes.
Yes, as you should. And
But yeah, we're in that fourth decade, girl.
yes. I wanted to, it's so much to touch on today, and I wanted to take it back just a little bit, just starting from just like childhood. We grew up together, so we're from the DMV area, and I just want to share that with a lot of the listeners that don't know who you are, instead of just jumping into the topic. So can you just share with the followers a little bit about yourself?
So my name is Lavetta, as my beautiful cousin stated, and I actually was married. So Adams is my maiden. That's what people from around the way may know me, but I go by the Life Turner or Lavetta Turner now. Name for my own personal reasons, but growing up throughout the DC area, because we lived in every quadrant you can think of. Oh my goodness.
Every neighborhood.
All of them. So we have friends and family pretty much all throughout the DMV overall. I graduated from Jefferson Junior High School in the Southwest area, Margaret, Washington, where I actually started my wellness journey.
Yeah, because that was a nursing school, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So Jefferson was a math and science school.
Okay.
So that kind of geared or gave me that great foundation. They gave me such a great foundation. We were learning Latin, which was expansive for my vocabulary, especially being from DC, where we have an accent.
And you look Hispanic, you look Latin.
Well, no, that not. We're speaking of more on the Latin, the origin language. So yeah, so that too, though.
Okay.
I get a little bit of everything. Yeah, I'm the melting pot. I mean, it's the beauty of America.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's crazy because you went to nursing school, and then fast forward to a lot of things that's taking place in your life, which you learned, you've been able to apply along your journey. And to get on topic, I wanted to talk to you today, and I know that this is very personal, and I want to thank you for being transparent and being willing to share your story with the masses, because it can definitely change a life or 2 or 3.
Absolutely.
And so today we're talking about breast cancer, and it's life after that C word. And my cousin LA was diagnosed with breast cancer back in 2018, and I was there when she was concerned. She did not know that she was diagnosed, and she had some worries, and there were some things and changes taking place with her body that I'm going to let you share, but I feel like when I talked to you, you pretty much had an idea of what was taking place. So can you take us along that journey? Like, take us back to the moment where you had those thoughts of what you thought it was, and then being diagnosed, like getting your first diagnosis?
So, when you ask and I hear someone else ask me, other than when I'm saying stuff like that to myself, it hits different. Because I did kind of warp back to that time. And initially, it was a lot of doubt. I was attributing everything, including my weight loss, the lack of sleep, a lot of the just pains and things that go along, the symptoms that come along with cancer, and giving all the credit to stress.
Yes.
As an African American woman, there are many hats that we wear. At that time, I was a community manager in the Prince George's County area for, I think it was like 1,000 units. And they were in the process of selling. So I had a lot going on.
Okay.
And you're used to your body shutting down to some extent, like, oh, I'm so exhausted. Exactly. Like, it's not a big deal that everything in my chest is like tight, and I feel like I'm about to drop any second now. But I'm just gonna sit down and drink a Coca-Cola and shake it off, because that's what the world expects from us. And we have owned this title of always being strong. So at that time, I was like, you know what? I am going to not diagnose myself. Something is not okay. I was very self-aware of what was going on with my body, but just not self-aware of what was going on with my body. That makes sense. Should. But we don't know what we don't know.
That's true.
And I don't have a little microscope like the magic school bus to throw the teacher down there to tell me, hey, look, I see a tumor in there.
And to be honest, sometimes the doctors don't even, we're going to touch on that, but there has been times where doctors go in and they don't see anything either. So
it can be missed. It can be misdiagnosed. I'm pretty sure there were people that have been told, oh no, it's benign, or it's just a lumpy tissue or cyst, because that was almost the attitude that I was given at the time of my diagnosis.
Oh, wow.
Yes. But like back to the feeling of it, that those initial feelings, denial, then concern, then that fear kind of kicked in, like, okay, I'm scared, and then I had to snap out of that real quick, because I didn't want to fight from that stance. I wanted to be on the opposition of it. So I started making myself extremely knowledgeable on anything and everything I could to help through this process.
Okay. So the diagnosis, I know before you were actually diagnosed, I saw you. We were at Maya's prom syndrome, and you had lost weight, but I didn't think, us women, our bodies up and down, up and down, up and down. And definitely, we always blame it on stress.
Oh, yeah.
And so, in my eyes, I didn't, like even me, I kind of beat myself up sometimes, because I don't recall ever asking you, how are you feeling, or are you okay? And I think, and I'm gonna be honest, it's a lot of different reasons. Sometimes you get scared to ask somebody that question because you don't want them to think that you think that something's wrong. Right. So you try to keep that positive mindset, but something's not right. But eventually, if it is, she'll tell me, right? So that night, I remember being in the bathroom, and you was touching your breast, and you was like, it's really hard. And you started crying, and I shedded a tear too. But I'm always optimistic no matter what. So in my mind, I'm like, I know she's afraid, but she's going to be all right. Like it can't be that bad. So that day, you weren't diagnosed yet. But it was hard, whatever it was.
Mhm.
And so after that, how long did it take for you to go to the doctor to actually get the diagnosis? And I know it's a lot because
Oh no, you're good. This is just part of that.
yeah, but it's
Yes.
like you gotta have the mindset to make the decision to go,
Mhm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you gotta have the mindset of being strong enough to deal with whatever information they share with
Come
you.
what may.
So it's like there are so many emotions and so many things going through your mind.
I'm just, these are happy tears, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
because I remember all of that.
Mm-hmm.
You remember who was in your corner.
Yes.
You remember who you talked to and their reactions.
Mm-hmm.
And I later, after my diagnosis,
Mm-hmm.
not long after I talked to you, because I was unemployed when I was diagnosed.
Okay.
And that was because I could not perform for those people anymore. I was shutting down.
Mm-hmm.
Mind you, there was not just that, it was this rapid tornado of transitions. I was going through a divorce.
That's so much.
The property that I was working was being sold. It was so much. And again, you're just like, oh, whatever. It's just a little bit of stress. I'll get through this. So once I realized that it wasn't just that, I started reaching out and saying things to like you, my mom, and my mom who thinks that I'm like G.I. Jane is like, girl, you all right. You know, you're
Because that's
strong.
what I was going to ask. Going through these different emotions and different issues, who were you releasing it to? Who were you talking to? Or you just was just keeping it in and dealing with it? I know you and I talk, but it's a difference. Like, you know, like therapy. What was your therapy? Who was your therapy? You know?
I don't want to get spiritual,
but this is
but
you know,
my higher self, that voice from within, that inner person that's like, this is not it. You got
I'm not
more.
going to give up.
Your Akashic records don't report this. This is not in your story to be told. That's not the conclusion.
That's strength right there.
So once I got that confirmation, because before all of the cancer, I mean, life has a way of preparing you for a lot of things. My body had already been through so much trauma, not just physically, but mentally, spiritually, emotionally. We don't factor those things in. All of those things play a part to your wellness. There's a subject matter called the 8 dimensions of wellness that tap on each of the 8 parts of your life that should be harmonious and balanced. Intellectual, social, financial. It's not just your mental, your spiritual, and you know, it's so many other facets that complete us. So I found a way to try to hone into those things. And a lot of it came from shutting out external noises. Everything that we already want or need to know comes from within. A lot of times people ask questions that they already know the answer to.
Yeah.
They just want a confirmation.
Yeah. Exactly.
Or they want to hear someone else. Me too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's just to be like, am I crazy? Am I the only one? Girl, what you have you heard about?
Right.
It's just, it's human nature. But for the most part, we know. We know. And I stopped allowing other people's opinions or thoughts to validate what I want.
What you want and how you feel.
Yes.
Yeah. That's
because I was people pleaser.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That was like a goal. Like I needed everybody to love me.
Oh no.
Oh
I've
my
never
goodness.
been that way. Thank God.
The reason why is because growing up I was called tactless. Because I was so direct, Nikita. You know my mouth can be a little harsh. But I've been approached that way. And so because of that,
You try to
I
take
tried
a different
to
approach and
tone it down
Mhm.
and be softer.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
So I think when it comes to when you say your inner self, that alone takes a lot of strength because so many people, when you've already been through trauma prior to receiving such a diagnosis as you received, it's almost like like you said, your body's already been through so much stress and so much until at that point you could either break down or get your butt up and do what you got to do. So I feel like that's a choice. You either have either choice, and it's so hard not to break down, you know. And that's why I asked, what was your therapy? Who was your therapy? And you said yourself, your inner self. And hopefully, with the women that are listening, that's battling whether it's cancer or going through any type of sickness, that you take heed to what LA is sharing when it comes to your inner self. Yes, God should be at the center of everything. Because without Him, you wouldn't be walking, you wouldn't be watching this podcast, and we understand that. But you also have to have a relationship with your inner self, love yourself. That builds strength. And I think that that's very important because just hearing people's stories sometimes, I'd be like, man, I would have broke down. Man, how did you, we say it all the time, how did you go through this? How did you survive? I don't know what I would have done. So when you
just
say
elaborate on one thing now?
Yes.
What you just said about God being the center, I believe that my inner self is that that's directly connected to God.
Your spirit, yes. Okay.
So when I'm talking to that, I feel as though I'm talking to God.
Okay, that makes sense. Wow. Okay, so I need you to take me back to the actual day that you went to the doctor to get checked on and see what was taking place with your body. And I don't know if that was the actual day that they told you. I know sometimes you got to get tests ran and then you got to wait and then you get a call. So I know it's going to be hard, but I would like to know, like, in detail, how did you get to the hospital? What was running through your mind? If they didn't tell you what was going on, the anticipation, like, can you give me details on that day?
Once I had gotten to the point where I knew something had to be done, I scheduled with my primary doctor, who forwarded me to have test run. So I had begun the process of the ultrasounds, and then from the ultrasound, we went to the mammogram. The mammogram almost took me out because of the pain and the lack of tissue, and my petite frame going into the machine was showing difficult.
You mean when they smushed the breast down?
Yes. I had to take a moment. I almost fainted while she was doing it because the pressure and then the tumor, and it was just so much. I don't know if it was the stress or my body just going through whatever was going through, but I was getting those lightheaded moments. And and at that point I definitely was feeling some kind of way. That was the day that they had also done the biopsy.
And what does that consist of? Do they cut something open?
Yes. So it wasn't open because they don't know what it is, so they can't go into it or expose it to anything. So the biopsy is when they'll go in and they'll take like this pin that goes up and clips a portion of the tissue. So they did 3 different
So like portions. A real skinny needle?
Yes.
Okay.
And they cut out little sections to run the test on and to see if it was benign or malignant. And the doctor was just so optimistic because for some reason or another, mine had not like stuck to me. Like I think some of them like
Majority of them have
Yeah.
a look that they know.
exactly. But I had been going to an acupuncturist because I was like, something's not right. We gotta do something. I was trying all my little
So you was
holistic
getting
approaches.
they do acupuncture in
Oh
the
no,
breast.
this was what I was doing on my own. But
You
in
know what I'm saying? But
between
with
that
because
time.
I've had acupuncture.
Yes.
But they pick certain.
Yes.
like the
Typically,
legs.
there are the lymph nodes and certain pressure points that they're looking to target. But because that was the target for me, he did special treatments for me, and it hardened the tumor. I'm not saying that it stopped it,
Okay.
but it didn't feel like it may have slowed down the growth.
Process. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So the acupuncture they was doing the needles in the breast.
Yes.
Okay.
So by the time I had gone and got a biopsy, I had maybe about 4 or 5 of those acupuncture treatments, and it was still there. It hadn't gone. It was still giving me problems. I was still having issues with it. It was sore. Oh my goodness, it was so sore.
And this is before your diagnosis?
Yes, this was all before my diagnosis. But just because I knew something was wrong, I was taking my little measures.
Yeah.
And mind you, I was unemployed, so I had nothing but time.
Yeah.
So, waiting for Medicaid to kick in. This is what delayed a lot of it.
Okay.
So, yeah. That being said, fast forward to the phone call that I received after all the tests and everything had been
How
run.
long after was that? About a week, a few days?
Just about 3 days. I didn't answer the phone. I knew. I was like, I'm gonna let it go to voicemail. Yep.
They didn't leave the information.
Not the information, but I could tell from the tone exactly what it was. Like I could probably pull up my phone and play that for you right now. I kept it. Oh no, it's not on that phone, but it is on one of my phones. I kept that, and every other interaction that I dealt with, I tried to record as much of it and document as much of that journey as possible for myself. But that phone call was like, it took a wind out of me. I just sat there for a while. I had no reaction at first. You know, it was like, well, you knew, but you know, you didn't know, but now you know, but you don't know. So it wasn't until I had to tell somebody that I broke down.
Who was the first person?
My mother. My mother. And at that time, my children were 14 and 10. You can't break news to them like that. So that we had a separate conversation there. But back to these raw emotions, the breakdown came. It was a bit of a pity party for like 10 seconds. I felt as though I deserved it for just that. Yeah, I definitely was like, oh, why me? God, I don't even have breast. The ignorance, right? Like, why me? I didn't even have any to start with, but genetics,
and
amongst other things.
And I want to say that when Grandma had breast cancer, and back during those times, people used to always be like, it skips a generation. Instantly, I never like verbally said anything to anyone, but I used to be terrified. It was like, when they used to say that all the time, I used to be like, oh my gosh, I'm the generation. It's going to happen to me. And I used to try to get like the mammogram. It was, because I was, what, 20 when Grandma passed? Was 21? But I was young trying to get those tests. And they were like, you're too young.
Exactly. So to go back to the diagnosis, I would have never thought to even think to have a mammogram done because I hadn't reached the age yet. By this time, I was tapping into 36. And knowing that my grandmother had it, I knew that there was a possibility, always.
Yes.
But unlike you, I never thought that it would be me.
You know, I always been a scaredy cat with everything.
No.
So yes, you do. We grew up together. I used to be scared of everything.
I know.
The elevator,
you,
like everything. So when that happened, I kept it to myself. But I was terrified. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get, you know, 'cause, I mean, they back then it skipped a generation, and they always kept re-emphasizing that. So it like stuck with me. So I dealt with a silent battle myself, just worrying about that alone, but never really saying, Mom, I'm scared. I never said nothing to anybody.
But those were conversations that a lot of families do not like to have, especially when you lose someone to it. It is a very uncomfortable conversation. Even with my announcing to the family what was going on, I had to really just come from a place of love and just let everybody know, hey, listen, it's okay if you're scared, but
ain't it crazy?
I'm
the
good.
Person diagnosed gotta be a strong one for everybody. It's like you're consoling the people that you're telling when you're the one that's dealing with the diagnosis.
You know, people care and they feel like they can't do anything. They don't know what to do.
I felt that
again.
When it came
you don't know what you don't know.
I don't know what to say.
Exactly.
I don't know what to do.
Exactly. And the crazy part is, we went through it with Grandma. But even still, it's such a different situation. First off, I was half her age, and the treatments back then were not the same as the treatments and the options and the knowledge that they are aware of current day. So us as a community, I'm speaking on behalf of the African American community because I happen to be one. We're afraid of those uncomfortable conversations. We're afraid of getting those diagnoses because we don't want to have to go through chemo.
We don't want to be told that something is happening.
No, we don't want to know that. We'd rather just not know. And that was not the case. I was like, oh, I need to know. Oh, I need to know all. Tell me everything. Everything. I want to know everything. And whatever you couldn't tell me, I was going to go and research it on my own.
So once you had your breakdown, and then you had to, move forward with the journey, and it's always the fear of the unknown. You don't know, but I'm not going to say that. I feel like that for me. But for you, I can't speak for you in saying that you had the fear of the unknown. You could have been, very optimistic. So share with me, did you ever have any thoughts or doubts like, I don't know about this, I don't know if I'm going to make it, or I'm going to, did you have those like...
After that first chemo, the first day I was like, oh, I got this. The day after, when the medicine actually kicked in, I was like, Jesus, be a fence. I was weak to the point of, I didn't know how I was breathing.
I know one time when I came to visit, you clearly said, I don't know about this. Like, it's becoming too much. Like,
it was,
makes you so weak.
Every part of you was just so weak. Again, it was a lot of just balancing that. When you are weak, you say that you are strong. Okay, so I spoke a lot of stuff into my existence. I was manifesting what I wanted to see in my life, and that was healing, and that was wellness, that was a new leaf. So overall, hardest part about handling that kind of weight and continuing to
push
move forward, you lose some ways about yourself. Not necessarily in a bad way.
Because I was going to ask, how did your life, your perspective on life shift after that? Your mind's everything. Just
Everything. Like you were saying, you want to be optimistic. You want to be all of these. Like, I was forcing those things, but eventually it was just like, this is it. This is the vibe.
Mm-hmm.
That's that energy you're supposed to be in. Like a rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
I could never jump double dutch, Takita. You know that. Like, I never had that rhythm. But once you get that rhythm,
all the dance parties, you used to just be there like rooting me on, like you were so stiff. I used to be like, loosen up, doing the lock
rigid,
and all the
mean. I was so like everything needed to.
Yeah.
And those are some of those things that I had to lose.
Wow.
They were weights. I'm still me, but it's certain things that I don't react to the same ways. When I was a child, I did childish things. And as I started going through this journey, unfortunately, again, you lose people, you lose habits, you lose many things, but on that other end, you gain so much. My insight on life, my outlook on it. I mean, perspective.
And think about it. We already know as we grow, our mindset shifts, our thought pattern shift. We always look back and be thinking to ourselves, what was I thinking about a whole lot of stuff we done years ago?
Mm-hmm.
So fast forward to now, we have a lot of growth. But then you also factoring in these challenges that you're up against, that you have to face. And so all of those things factoring in, you're making a whole lot of shifts and changes all throughout your whole entire life. Like the people, like you said, the people you're interacting with, the things that you choose to give your time to. And that's very important. And I this segment is all about cancer and inspiring a lot of women out there that's going through cancer or may have a loved one that's going through cancer. And I just want to share just a bit about myself, because when you brought up shifting and just changing, and it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing, right? And your family and the people around you may look at it in a sense, but it's a choice that you're making for yourself, because at the end of the day, even though you love them, you love you, right?
Hello.
So you have to make a choice for you and no one else.
Exactly.
And I'm sharing that because I've dealt with that too. We've dealt with similar things, and a lot of people don't know, not even my kids. So hopefully, I mean, they might eventually, they probably watch the podcast one day and be like, Mom, why didn't you tell me? But I had my own struggles with health as well. And even today, I might have my moments where I might feel lightheaded or aching or things like that. And this was back in 2022 when they found a mass on my lung. And I went through similar emotions as you, like, I'm scared, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to think. And when they did the biopsy, I didn't want to talk to anyone. I shared it with a couple of people, but not many. And it was crazy because all within a month's time span, I found out that there was a mass. Just by one day, I woke up and I coughed up some like it was like blood, and I'm like, that's never happened to me a day in my life. And even when I went to the doctor, they're like, oh, you had a nosebleed, sinuses. I'm like, no. I had already been complaining for years about my breathing, and I would work out like 4 or 5 times a week for months. And it's like, why isn't my endurance picking up? Something's not right. They kept brushing it off. But this one day, when I saw the blood, I said, no. They tried to send me home. I said, something not right. So they ended up seeing something, and then I went to the specialist, and then that's when they wanted to do the biopsy. You know, they were like, oh, you should be fine. It's in and out. Because I was going out of town within a few days. So I'm like, do I need to? I wanted to get it over with.
Right.
So I'm like, can I do this and be fine, or should I go out of town and come back? Either way, my mind was just in shambles. Like, so what do I do? So I got the procedure done before I went out of town. Went out of town, my lungs started collapsing. And I'm saying that because it's so frustrating when you let these doctors in to do something. And I understand they mean well, but in my mind, I'm like, had not gotten that biopsy, my lungs wouldn't have never collapsed. And it put me in a position where I felt horrible, and I was like almost forced to do this surgery that I thought I had time to decide on whether or not I was going to do. So I got a call too. My heart dropped when they called to give me the results of the biopsy. It was on the weekend, like Valentine's Day, it was like on a Saturday. So I already knew that a doctor calling me on the weekend, you couldn't wait till Monday? I answered the phone, it was early in the morning, I was in Vegas, and the tone, like you said, that tone.
Yes.
I was just like, and like I was numb afterwards, but what he had said was that when they did the biopsy, the mass was cancer. So in short, that means I had lung cancer. Now, thank God that it wasn't the kind that, you know, can spread through your body, or there's so many different kinds out here. Mine was, you can remove it and you should be fine. But there were so many different decisions I had to make. When I got back home and went to the appointment, I broke down. I was not prepared. I went by myself. I wanted to go by myself because I felt like when you have other people with you, they make it worse. No offense, I know people care, but it's like to have people, oh my God, and just, you know, it's like, I don't need that right now. I need to be alone. But when I went into that, it wasn't even like a doctor's office. It was like a big room full of doctors, not just an office. It was a room because all of the doctors needed to be in there. And when I saw that, I'm like, what is going on? Right?
Yeah, it's intimidating.
So it was just like, I guess, just different specialists, and everyone is in there giving me what my options are, like radiation, chemo, like all these different things. And they're like, we could break your rib if you want to save part of your lung, or we could just get rid of the whole, like it was so much that I had to leave and go home with and make a decision. But when my lung collapsed, it's like one of them things where you feel so horrible, you're just like, do what you gotta do. So I wanted to share that because that would be crazy of me to have a podcast, sit here and expect for you or anyone else to be transparent and share their journey on cancer or anything else, and me not be open and transparent about my journey. And there's so much more that comes with that, but I do know that my mind shifted tremendously. And I know it's sad, it's weird, I don't want to say it's sad, but it's crazy how like life can really take a turn, and it makes you look at it in a completely different way. Whether if it's the passing of someone close to you, you being sick or something's being like with the cancer diagnosis, is like, in my mind, I don't have a long time to live. Like, I don't know what's going to happen to me.
Right.
So let me stop settling and dealing with stuff that I don't want to deal with or don't have to. If it's one of them things, life's so short, so let me enjoy it in happiness. And if it's not bringing me happiness, and if it's something that's a burden, that's dragging me down, that's making me unhappy, that's interrupting my peace, no matter how important it is, I've had to let it go. It comes with it just happened, like I had to release. Because it was just something I felt I had to do, and it hurt so bad, but I knew that it was for the better. And it has been for me the better. Just not worrying about other people as much. I'm not saying to be selfish, but sometimes you could worry so much about a person, care so much, until it could take effect on you in a negative way. And so I feel like even though that diagnosis really was a scare for me, it really kind of blessed me in a way and opened my eyes to life in a whole different way. You know how like people think they got tomorrow? It's easy to say tomorrow's not promised, but that shit is real when you get like a life-threatening diagnosis, because it really hits different. And you wake up every morning like, I'm going to do this shit because this is what I want to do.
Absolutely.
And we all should be thinking like that, whether you're diagnosed or not, because we just don't know. We wake up, go in the car, get in an accident today or tomorrow. But it's something about when it hits you or something or someone close to you, you just a totally different person. So I get it. I get it.
Well, thank you for sharing your side of that, because like I said, that it's not a comfortable conversation.
Not at all.
I have just come to terms that this is just part of my story now, just as much as I'm a mother of two beautiful daughters. This is just a part of what's making me, or what's built the character of who I am and what's sitting in front of me today. So the metamorphosis of what happens to people, especially dealing with chronic illnesses, is beautiful. You're either going to feed the good wolf or you want to feed the bad wolf. I chose to feed the good wolf. Now that bad wolf will come out every once in a while because it was necessary to set those boundaries, those healthy boundaries, where even...
And I don't regret none of it.
Absolutely not. I can love you from a distance, sugar. Keep it moving.
Right. I love it. Okay, so we are back from a break. We had to take a break. I wanted LA to get herself together. She was a little emotional earlier, which is expected. And also my shirt. I'm glad I took a look at some of the footage that we had did, because I had to add this little brooch button to the shirt because I didn't like how it was, looking. So we're resuming. And so I want to start out by asking my next question, which is, who were your biggest supporters during your journey?
The closest people to me that I allowed within my circle, because you have to set boundaries, and everybody kind of plays a major role. My mother was
give Aunt Cherie her props. We love you, Aunt Cherie.
She had already had experience of dealing with circumstances like this, and like I mentioned initially in the beginning, she was like, "You're good. You're young." Da, 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 da.
And she practically took care of Grandma.
Yeah, she had a hospice bed set up
in her house,
in the apartment, while she was going through her last treatments. So I knew that she understood what
Yeah.
was to come.
Yeah.
Luckily for her strong mindset, it kind of helped me again to get out of those little pockets of pity,
Mm-hmm.
because you'll find yourself kind of going back into it like, oh goodness, why?
Yeah.
And then you start getting that why not? You know, let's get through this. My significant other, um, he was there, right there with us. He actually was the one who, in my video, cut my hair off before my chemotherapy. People were like, "No, don't cut your hair," and I'm like, "It's hair; it grows back."
Now people cut it because it ends up being patchy. Like you're gonna get.
Yeah, you'll see your hair literally fall from your roots.
Okay.
Like you may just put your hand across your hand like that,
and it just
it'll
come
be a
right out.
handful of hair. So yeah, it falls out, and that was just something that I felt like, because you don't have control over any of this process, you just feel so helpless.
Mm-hmm.
That was something that I did for myself, psychologically, where I didn't see that happening. You know, like I had a lot of hair, it's like a lion's mane, and to see it just coming out like that, I think that would have been a little too traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
So that was just
preventative
of the shock factor.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, of course, my babies, they gave me strength in areas that I could not even imagine that I would have had to tap into.
You told them both at the same time?
I told them at different times because of their ages.
So I'm assuming the oldest first.
Yes. And Kayla has never really been like a baby. She has always been mature. A little lady. Yes.
She's 5 times.
Yes.
She's like a plus 10. So how old is she? Like 20?
She's 20. She'll be 21 August.
Okay. Yes. So she's giving 41. So yeah.
Yes.
She's very 41. Mature.
Yes.
Little old lady.
She's my little old lady. And I know that it affected her. But there were a lot of disclaimers leading up to the actual diagnosis, where I was like, Mommy's not doing too good. I don't know what's going on, but this is what we're doing. And I just think that you need to be aware. So if you see me, you know, whatever, don't be confused. This is what it is. And then when that diagnosis came about, like the official diagnosis was provided to me at Johns Hopkins. And my oncologist, and there was actually a team of nurses that speak with you. And when they talk about chemo brain, like your memory in the fog, that's just what it feels like. Yeah. So like to give you pinpoints on like dates and stuff like that, I'd actually have to go back and look at that stuff, because a lot of it just started kind of just interweaving with each other. It could have been a lot of the trauma. Like my body went through some extreme things in a matter of a year or two. Yeah. So Johns Hopkins, the diagnosis, telling my children. I told my oldest first, and she took it like, all right, what's next? What are we doing? What do I need to do? She was all on board, and I couldn't ask for anything else. The youngest, she's a child. She doesn't understand it. Johns Hopkins was very supportive in providing literature for my children, for them to have wonderful perspective on, you know, what's going on. They're impacted as well. Yeah, so like I gave them some children's books on what's going on and why this is happening and things of that sort. But one other very, well, actually, there's so many people. Aunt Denise was there, and she, oh my goodness, like she was there from first chemo to last chemo. Yeah, she made sure she found her way over. Oh my goodness, she doesn't even drive, and she was like, I'm gonna be there. And she was there. Yeah, she didn't come with like $10 million and like, here's the cure, let's go to Peru and, you know, do some ayahuasca or something, you know. But she came with a heart of gold, and that's what I needed at that time. My aunt Rosemary came all the way from Connecticut, checked on me constantly. She was there for one of my many surgeries.
That's wonderful.
Our cousin Tanya,
who
is also a breast cancer survivor.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
And she's from where?
She's from here. She had relocated to the area and then came back to this area, the DMV. But amazing. In one word, amazing.
That's awesome.
Oh my goodness, she came with her juicer, fresh produce. So she was telling me how to get my body back together. So it was a little bit of everybody from my community, from our village, that tapped in how they could. I had friends that I had met from karaoke that came just to sing to me. Childhood friends like Chipmunk, he came through. So it was just like, people just wanted to make sure that they knew that I was good, you know, and it was so
wonderful. So what about because when I used to come and visit you and these animals, you have like a house full of puppies all the time. And did you have a cat too?
I did, but not then.
Okay.
Yes.
So I recall like a few times you sharing how therapeutic they have been throughout this journey.
So I love animals, just in general. I mean, not just animals. Like, I'm one of those people, you cannot kill a spider in front of me. No, I'm so serious. It's so bad. I had my boyfriend feeding a spider in his room. Story for another day. But
Lord,
I am, and I just connect with them. And there have been studies that show like the purr from a cat's purr is healing.
Oh, okay.
Rubbing dogs is healing. I don't get into the science with you right now, but I have seen the studies, how it works. Google it. But that's why people get like emotional support pets and things of that sort, because they do help channel some of the anxieties and things of that sort. So my fur babies were extremely critical during that phase, and
that's good.
Yeah,
I was like, you can't leave them babies out, because I remember like I'm asking your support system and you ain't speak on them.
Like Muffin is like my best friend to this day still. She's the runt from my very first litter that we got. We had a love baby and I kept one. But she's like my best friend. She's still, when I'm not in a good place, she's attentive to that.
Okay. So that's good that you had a really good support system. And I want to touch on your thought process when it comes to like your eating habits, because of course when people are typically diagnosed, the first thing they think is, what did I do wrong? If it's breast cancer, you're thinking, what did I eat, or what was I eating, or I need to stop eating meat, or even lung cancer. There's so many people out here who have lung issues that have never smoked, or has maybe tried it but just not a smoker. So so many questions run through your mind, like, how did this happen to me? Where did I go wrong? Was it that one day I had the hookah and the damn, but whatever I inhaled just stayed there and just created something? Like, we just will never know. But I'm asking because I know for me, once I had that diagnosis and all of that stuff happened to me, in addition to my mindset shifting, my thought process on what I take into my body had changed. And then I started educating myself on so many different herbs, and I have a cabinet full of herbs. I got burdock root, yellow dock, bladderwrack, cleavers, you name it. Clovers. Yes, red clovers, dandelion root, turmeric, cayenne pepper, the cinnamon, Ceylon cinnamon, like you name it, I know all about it. The garlic, I educated myself so much until it's like one of them things where I try to keep a good regimen. Of course, I fall off, just like, with dieting. And I also have done like a lot of fasting and a lot of periods where I'll stop eating meat. I'm saying periods because I'll do it like for a month or maybe 2, but then I always revert back. Mainly because I just haven't found my rhythm of how I'm going to do this with managing so many different businesses and things like that. I feel like I know health is wealth and your health is a priority and I should make it a priority, but the cooking these different healthy meals and stuff like that can be very time consuming. And when you're on the go trying to do this, trying to do that, it just don't work. Like people say meal prep. I've tried that. Once I eat a meal 2 times, I cannot eat the same stuff. If I do, sometimes I just won't eat. So then I'm already tiny, and it's like my weight fluctuates so much. 1 minute I'm small, then like next month I'm thick. So it's like or thicker. So I have to find my rhythm in that. But I want to know with you when it comes to like eating meat, did you continue to eat meat? I'm sure you educated yourself more you went to nursing school, you knew a lot about health already, but this here I know took it up a notch for you. And I even remember coming to your house and before I had my health issues and you was saying all these different things and I'm like, this girl is really educated in so much stuff. Like I'm just looking around the room seeing drawings and I'm like, what and this is a side that I never knew. And we were like cousin sisters, like we lived together, grew up together. So share with me like your journey as it relates to like food and what you were intaking to get back to your normal self.
So, in order to tell you what transition, I could tell you I have to start a little bit before. Um, I've never been like very particular about my diet because I've always been petite. So
You
it
eat whatever.
gave me the luxury of being able to do what I wanted. There were periods where I cut red meat and was eating just brown rice, fish, veggies. Like that was like a lifestyle for me.
What about starches like potatoes and stuff like that?
No. It will be replaced with something else.
Okay.
So nothing white, no white potatoes. Yeah. It was like brown rice or quinoa or
sweet potatoes, maybe?
Sweet potatoes, because that's my potassium.
Okay, so we touched on some of the foods that you focused on throughout your journey. So pretty much not many starches, and I understand why, because starch turns into sugar, and we know sugar, they say, can feed cancer. So you did a lot of juicing and things like that, a lot of vegetables, fruits.
Veggies. So root veggies were huge in cleansing my blood. Once I did start actively going through chemo, you really don't have a taste for anything. And again, you're weak. You just need something to get that your energy. A lot of people go to the Ensures. I really don't care for the taste of those. So beetroots, carrots.
Beets was pretty good, so you did the beets, okay.
And I don't care for the taste of beets, but
the juice?
it was juice.
Yeah.
So I do like a combination of celery, carrots, beetroots, like a lot of root vegetables.
So I make this. Yeah. So when I bought my Nama juicers after I came home from surgery, I started juicing a lot. I hate beets, but I made like this fruit punch beet juice that was really good, and I didn't taste the beets at all. And it had beets, grapes, apples, carrots, pineapple. I think that was it, but that combo was really really good.
Oh, yeah.
So
I do some like fruit blends every once in a while just to kind of get that taste, but I've never really had a big sweet tooth anyway, so cutting that out was not a big deal for me.
Okay.
Now meats, on the other hand, I'm not gonna hold you. I eat all.
Yeah. So you never stopped eating meat?
Not really. No.
Okay.
I was
extreme into it. But
You
while
cut
you're
out
going
you cut out
through
some
it,
things.
while
Yeah.
you're going through it, especially your body just can barely
Yeah.
digest it because of the pain. You're taking medications, so a lot of those medications cause constipation. So you need
It's all the ripple effect.
fiber,
Yeah.
and you want foods that are good for anti-inflammatory.
Inflammatory. That's the key.
Cleansing
Cleansing the blood and
yes,
anti-inflammatory.
yes, one of the biggest causes of most and any and every disease is inflammation. And that's just some turmeric, some ginger, some black pepper, some cayenne. Google the list. It goes on.
Yeah, I do that. Well, I try to do that every morning. The cayenne with the ginger shots and the lime and stuff like that. So yes, I'm definitely familiar with those different
Those are
regimens.
you can get from the grocery store.
So what about like herbs? If you had to tell someone that's battling cancer, or they may know someone that's battling cancer, if you had to give 3 tips as far as health wise, whether it's an herb, a medicine, or something that you did, the 3 top things that has helped you along the journey, whether it's a particular food, a particular herb, a particular medicine, what helped you? What do you swear by that you think really contributed to your healing process?
So I've been diagnosed with triple negative metastatic breast cancer. Some people respond to hormones, some people don't.
The herbs that worked best for me were a recommendation, well, not a recommendation, they're the recipe from RN out of Canada. Her name was Reen Case, and her name spelled backwards was Essiac. That consists of sheep's wool, burdock root, and it's one other ingredient. It's escaping me at this moment, but she had a special regimen, and there had been over 50,000 cases of her either eliminating, eradicating, or minimizing the size of the tumors
With
that
the Essiac
with the Essiac.
I saw that they had the extracts.
They have different forms of it now. Yeah.
So on my herbal journey, I just be ordering stuff
Yeah.
now.
So they also have what's called pine. Oh goodness, pine. It's almost. Oh, it'll come back to me. But it's a pine, almost like a syrup. And it does just the same thing. It helps with anti-inflammatory. I'll be sure to send you the link for that too.
Okay.
But while I was taking Essiac, the people recommended that I take them as a pair. So
Essiac and the pine.
yes.
Okay.
And pine bark.
Pine bark.
Yes.
Okay.
So pine bark extract, and it kind of just had that eliminating the inflammation out of my body. I also was really big on oil of oregano.
Okay.
It burned going down, but I was like, well, if it felt like that going through my esophagus, maybe it'll knock some of this other stuff that's not supposed to be out. So,
what about black seed?
I love black seed, but I have been taking black seeds for years
already.
Yeah, but to kind of hone in on the things that I knew that were jumping on that tumor, I had friends that were pulling up real, like going in the field in the forest, pulling up dandelion root and making me teas. And so I had those dandelion and the apricot pits and all those just natural, saviors. Cinnamon was a big one. I don't know how it affects, the cancer or whatever, but I know that it's a herb or a spice that you need to have in your.
And let's be clear, it's not the regular cinnamon that we buy, the McCormick cinnamon that you buy in the store. It's, well, you can buy this form too if you go to Whole Foods or Mom's, but it's the Ceylon cinnamon. It's CEYLON. And so when someone tells you to take some cinnamon, make sure it's the Ceylon cinnamon. The regular seasoning cinnamon is really good too, but that's not what is used to help with health and anti-inflammatory issues. So I just got to clear that up, because people always get it misconstrued and think that is regular.
Same thing
McCormick.
with apple cider vinegar.
Yes.
Apple cider vinegar is great, but for it to really have those beneficial properties, the best form would be to take the one with mother in
Yes,
it.
definitely.
So that's just something to look
I
for
agree.
when you're looking at apple cider vinegars.
Yeah.
It's called mother.
Okay. Wonderful. So I think so the SEI extract, the pine bark, and oil of oregano are like your top three go-tos if someone was experiencing cancer or any health issues, any anti-inflammatory.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it can be.
that's what I found worked for me. I've heard a lot of people with other, holistic approaches, where they crush up the apricot pits. I've heard people even go as far as like parasite cleanses.
Yeah.
Okay, so we all have to find what works for us, because again, we don't know what we don't know. And in many cases, we don't even understand where the root of these problems are coming from. But if you get a balance on, your diet, or again, when we talk about that physical thing, a lot of that relates to the spiritual things too. So the things that you're taking in, I stopped watching a lot of things on TV.
Wow.
It was feeding parts of my spirit that I didn't need triggered. So I limited what was coming in to my body, not just through my mouth.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.